This ADA 60p aquarium doesn't need a maintenance. It just had one yesterday. I have a bad habit of doing these maintenance sessions late at night, but this one I filmed because it was the first time doing a full trimming. The layout is nearly 5 months old. However, the foreground glossostigma carpet has been replaced several times due to difficulty growing the plant. The magic in making an aquarium look amazing is in its maintenances. I hope you guys enjoy watching the video and pick up some tips on how to improve your maintenance sessions. The aquarium has been overrun with pest snails lately. If I don't have any removal method, they'll continue to overpopulate. They tend to come out most at night, so every night I spend some time crushing them manually. It at least serves as a good food supply for the shrimp and helps to keep balance in the aquarium. Sorry if it seems a bit inhumane. I always put down moving blankets at the front of the aquarium. There's bound to be water spillage, especially when doing filter maintenance. It's a good tip if you want to keep your living space clean and organized while you work. I want to clean the glass of the aquarium, but the water level is too high. If I put my hands in, I will spill water everywhere. So I start by removing some of the water. I use the ADA Pro Razors from Aqua Aquarium to clean off the glass. They're so well made and constructed, and I feel like I can use this set for the rest of my life. I just wish that they would create a cover so that way you don't accidentally cut yourself. It's very sharp. After usage, I always dry off my tools to prevent any rusting. Since the razors can't reach the corners, I use a toothbrush instead. You want to keep the silicone on the corners as clean as possible. There's been some algae buildup on the stone, so I continue using the toothbrush to clean off the algae. I try to do this before draining too much water. I want to get this dirty water out after cleaning the stones, not the other way around. Now to begin trimming. I've trimmed the Eleocharis atricularis several times before. It grows so quickly and pretty wildly. I mostly do touch-ups and just try to prevent the plant from growing too tall in certain areas. I hate netting out hairgrass. It always gets stuck in the net. I have different sized nets, but they all get stuck no matter what. Usually I leave them out to dry overnight, and then I find it much easier to remove the next day. As you might see, the Eleocharis has really been sending runners throughout the tank and growing all over the glossostigma carpet. Although it can have a natural appeal, I try to control it once a week in each maintenance session. Originally, I would try pulling out some of the Eleocharis leaves to the root, but I would find that the glossostigma could also get uprooted, so this wasn't really working anymore. So I've kind of given up and I'm just trimming the Eleocharis leaves to the height of the glossostigma now. I'm hoping as the glosso secures itself more strongly to the substrate, it will withstand the Eleocharis getting in the way. This is my first time trimming the glossostigma in a few months. I really wanted to give it time to grow and spread into a carpet. However, I've been noticing a lot that it is growing out of the soil, kind of like floating. So my strategy here is to trim the runners that are not lowly growing or secured to the soil. I'm hoping that this will encourage more shorter growth. People contact me a lot about the glosso carpet and keeping it short. I used to see that mine would grow way too tall also. For me, using very powerful lights has made the biggest difference in growing the plant short. I'm sure using remineralized RO water that is softer and leaner fertilization has also had an impact. When I see some stems that are growing too tall, I prioritize trimming those to encourage shorter growth. After trimming, I noticed a few bald spots where there wasn't much growth. I'm sure it would eventually spread there, but I thought it could be quicker to replant some of the stems in there also. After replanting, I still had some glosso stems remaining, so I collect them and keep them in my plant holding tanks. I might sell some of the portions to local hobbyists or reuse them for future setups. More netting out leaves. This is just something that I do after every step. I'm not sure if you guys noticed this, but I've been having an issue with staghorn algae in this aquarium also. I can usually contribute it to being too low or fluctuating CO2 levels or some other nutrient deficiency. I've been wondering lately about how we should be changing the dosage and fertilization and CO2 in the aquarium based on the plant mass and the maturity of the aquarium. I read in ADA's Nature Aquarium Guide 60 that they do just that. Newer aquariums have less CO2 and ferts. As plants grow, they increase both. When they do a big trimming, they decrease the levels again. I haven't really done this before. I just look at my CO2 indicator and make adjustments if necessary. I dose the same amount unless I see deficiencies. I'm wondering if this is something that needs to be rethought in the hobby. I tried to manually remove as much staghorn algae as possible. I also started wiping down the glass with a paper towel to remove some extra trimmings. Don't worry, I saw that shrimp in the bucket and he got placed into my shrimp holding tank. I drained the water further and tried to remove as much staghorn algae as I can. I noticed some of it growing on decaying glossostigma leaves. Sometimes algae just grows on decaying plants, and trimming it off is all you need to do to solve the problem. There were some areas of staghorn algae spores on the stones and on the leaves, so I'm using some Seachem XL to kill it. Be careful with this stuff though. I've accidentally overdosed it before and can have a pretty negative consequences on your aquarium. I add it into a syringe and spot dose the affected areas. It's most effective when the filter isn't running. When I do water changes on the larger aquariums, I have two separate hoses. One is to drain water into my utility sink, and one is to add water back to the aquarium for my RODI reservoir. I go back to turn on the pump and begin filling up the aquarium. As a precaution, I always add Seachem Safe in case there are any traces of chlorine, chloramine, or heavy metals. There is also a heater in my RODI reservoir, so I set them to the same temperature as the display aquariums. When I do larger water changes, I add GH Plus as it's filling up, just so there isn't any shock in the water quality for the livestock. My trusty TDS meter tells me a reading of how many dissolved solids are in the water. The RO unit strips my TDS down to about 5. Planted tanks should usually be kept around 120 TDS. So I continue adding more GH Plus until I reach approximately 120 TDS. Since it's not during the typical photo period and no CO2 is running, I let the lily pipes up for the night to aerate the aquarium. I also find that the extra oxygen settles down the fish after larger water changes. Thanks for sticking around and watching the aquarium maintenance session. After long days of work, I usually look forward to time spent in the gallery maintaining the aquariums. I try not to think of it as cleaning, but rather a continuation of the art form, a creative process. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.